Join us on a culinary journey through Stirling's past as we celebrate 900 years of the Royal Burgh and uncover the food tales and traditions that have shaped this city's rich heritage.
We that are here in heaven's glory, to you that are in purgatory, commends us on earthly ways. I mean, we folk in paradise, in Edinburgh, we all mariners, to you in Stirling, in distress, where neither pleasure nor delight is. Oh, ye hermits and anchor saddles, that tax your penance at your tables, and eats no meat restorative, nor drinks no wine comfortative, nor ale, but that is thin and small, with few courses into your hall. Come hame, and dwell nae more in Stirling, frae hideous hell. Come hame, and dwell.
But fear not, Stirling, for though our Makar, our Scots poet, has criticised thy fare, we shall prove on this journey that our food and drink offering is fit for kings, queens and commoners alike.
We're standing here at Stirling Castle, one of the most important places in the history of Scotland. It dates away back to the early 1100s, so it was here 900 years ago when David I created the Royal Burgh of Stirling. Because the castle's a royal citadel and it's been the scene of many a famous banquet for our kings and queens. Much of the food for the royal table here at the castle is grown and sourced locally. Down below us, for instance, we have the Royal Garden, the King's Knot as it's known today. There's been a royal garden there for centuries. Lots of the food comes from that garden. Strawberries, apples, pears. We know there was peacocks and swans in the garden. They were all for the royal table. There was even water features down there. We know that the water features were stocked with pike, again for eating. Food and drink's a huge part of the daily life here at Stirling Castle. We had massive kitchens here, the great kitchens preparing all the foods for the banquets, for example. There's two major ones in the 16th century, both held in the Great Hall. 1566, Mary Queen of Scots has a 3-day party in our Great Hall to celebrate the baptism of King James VI. 17th, 18th, 19th December, it culminated with the very first fireworks display ever witnessed in Scotland. The whole 3-day spectacular was described in its day as Queen Mary's Triumph. The other one is James VI himself. As an adult, he again uses the Great Hall, this time to celebrate the baptism of his son, Prince Henry, 30th August 1594. And perhaps the high point of that occasion was when a ship of state, some 18 feet long and 40 feet high, was drawn into the Great Hall, and from its decks, food was served to the guests. And then once the ship was withdrawing from its 36 brass cannons on the decks, rounds were fired off, much to the consternation, it said, of some of the guests.
Now, Scotland's first dram is said to have been drunk in Stirling Castle by good King James IV, making him the world's first famous whisky drinker. Another whisky tale is that Scotland's smallest distillery has just been established in the shadow of the castle on the site of the former royal stables used by King James IV's son, James V.
The whisky we're producing here at the distillery will be the first single malt made here since 1852. So it's been over 170 years since anyone has actually made a single malt here in Stirling, so we're very, very excited about it. But the size of the production is very, very small, only 20,000 litres per year. Now, for perspective, most distilleries in Scotland are producing 2 million litres a year, so we are actually the smallest whisky distillery in Scotland nowadays, which is something we're quite proud of. Speaking of the whisky we're distilling right now, that's not going to be ready until 2027, and we're actually producing what's called the King James VI bottle set. So we're using Madeira, rum, port, sherry, bourbon and wine casks to produce 6 very exclusive single cask whiskies. And we decided to name them after King James as well. When you're on the same hill as the castle, you got a relation there, but on top of that, the building we're actually sitting in today was supposedly the site of King James's stables in the 16th century. We make a very big deal about using fresh, locally sourced ingredients. So the raspberries, they come from our red cap liqueur, local farms. Same with the brambles in our Green Lady liqueur. And the nettles for our gin, well, they come just from Castle Hill, which is just behind the distillery today. Whether it's from the castle or the surrounding area, you have tales about ghosts, tales of vicious goblins that steal children's blood, tales about the local battles, whether it was Bannockburn or Stirling Bridge. If you can think of it, we've probably got it incorporated into our gins.
Now, while today water is the healthiest drink, if you lived in medieval Stirling within the city walls, the doctor, or rather the king, ordered you to drink beer.
900 years ago, if you lived in Stirling, you would be living within the city walls. And everybody who lived within the city walls was given beer 3 times a day, morning, noon and night. So the soldiers, the farm workers, but also the women and children. In medieval times, ale was very, very important because they didn't know why, but they knew if they were drinking water, it would kill them. It was polluted with the human waste. So drinking beer was the safer option, and that was because it was boiled. Nowadays, everybody thinks of beer as hops, which are what these green things are here. But hops weren't around in medieval times, so they had to use whatever was growing in the fields, lavender, heather. And I particularly like this thistle root, which I've been using in some of my beers. It's an old recipe that I found back, a medieval recipe, and it's using the root of the thistle, and it gives very interesting flavours. That's the amazing thing about beer. Nothing's changed in the last 900 years. It's water, it's barley, it's hops, and it's yeast. It's still the same. 900 years ago they would have been using those ingredients, and that's what we're using today. Beer was originally made by the ladies of the house. So it was a household duty in medieval times. When they would make the bread, they would also make the beer. Local people around the village would come to a particular house and they would ask to try their beer. And that's how the term pub came about, because it was a public house. So the public were coming to your house to drink beer. However, it wasn't all rosy, because if the beer wasn't good, it's possible that the people who had drunk the beer and not enjoyed it would come back and call you a beer witch, and there's every possibility you would have been burnt at the stake.
Next time, join us as we delve into the wild world of foraging and game.